Justin or Jen, let me know when y'all are ready to go live, and I will start it off. Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Pryor, and I'm with the Virginia Department of Transportation. Thank you for attending the Hampton Roads District virtual spring meeting. We will start out with brief remarks by the Secretary and others, followed by a public comment period. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to Secretary Valentine for introductions and comments.
Thank you, Kim Pryor. I just really want to thank you again. It'll be for the last time. This is the 9th and final public hearing that we have managed virtually, and you have done an outstanding job. So I thank you for that. I thank Roni Day and Amy White for all of their work. And we have great people on IT. Tonight we have Jen, Richard, and Justin. Please know I'm very grateful to all of you as well. Hello, Hampton Roads. Oh my goodness, we wish so much that we could be with you in person. I know my whole team wishes that were true. Jennifer Mitchell and I do happen to be over in the Christiansburg district. We announced with the governor and the CEO of Norfolk Southern the Western Rail Initiative, which is an initiative to extend passenger rail to the New River Valley and to add an additional train along the 2981 corridor. So it was a big day over here for rail, and we're happy to be actually sitting right here, and I can't tell you how beautiful the view is, to be with all of you. This past year, the fact that we are all here virtually has certainly been remarkable. There will be many, many lessons learned from this, but none more important than the fundamental role that transportation plays in people's lives each and every day. Throughout, I just want to assure you that the health and safety of our employees, our customers, and our partners have been our top priority as we've made a commitment to transporting critical goods and connecting people to essential work, food, and medicine. As we've been doing this, and we continue to do this, we have also been managing the financial implications of this pandemic. It appears that transportation are going to be down through FY22 about $638 million, which is very significant for us. But I believe that Virginia has been in a position to manage these reductions as responsibly as we can because of two very important decisions that were made in 2020. The first was the passage of the governor's Transportation Omnibus Bill, which restructured transportation funding, indexed it to the Consumer Price Index. It introduced a highway use fee. We are now on a pilot for a mileage-based user fee. It created the governance for passenger rail. And most importantly, something that often goes beneath the surface, it is a true financial commitment to a multimodal transportation system. That was the first decision. The second decision that I believe has helped us weather this pandemic was during the special session of the General Assembly, working with the governor and our General Assembly members to pass a budget amendment that provided flexibility to our Commonwealth Transportation Board in order to put every dollar we have to work today. In a 6-year window, those projects that receive funding in the early years but do not require, according to their own schedules, funding in the latter years, we are able to, through a cash management system, put those dollars to work and restore them within the 6-year window. As a result, all of our projects remain in the pipeline on time and according to their, on budget and according to their own schedules. We did not have to cancel any projects or delay any contracts or lay off any workers. And I believe that that was the most important thing transportation could do as a sector to contribute to Virginia's recovery and growth. With those decisions, I will tell you that we are now, again, in our 9th public hearing, we are coming forward and giving an update on our 6-year improvement program. We now, because of I think very smart decisions, we are going to be presenting an update to you that includes 3,900 projects for a total investment of $21.4 billion, FY22 through FY27. So this evening, Commissioner Brich from VDOT is going to be going over the safety issues having to do with COVID and a highway update. Director Mitchell is going to provide an update with rail and transit and give a brief overview, perhaps of our Western Rail Initiative, but also the Transforming Rail Initiative, which is really the landmark decision that we had to get done in order to even be here today for the Western Rail Initiative. A brief overview, and we have an all-star lineup of your Commonwealth transportation members. You have John Malbon, who is your district representative. You have Steve Johnson, who is rural at large, and you have Shep Miller, who is urban at large. So you all are covered with such great leadership, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate all the work and effort, dedication that each gentleman has brought to the CTB. Finally, we'll hear from Chris Hall, the district engineer over in Hampton Roads. He's on the ground for us every day, helping to deliver and execute with excellence. And so with that, Commissioner Brich, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Madam Secretary, thank you very much for the introduction. And I too want to thank everyone viewing tonight. We're excited to have your comments on the 6-year improvement program and welcome you to the Hampton Roads District. I too wish that we were there in person, a little bit for my own selfish reasons, because I could be able to sleep in my own bed at my house in Virginia Beach. But again, I can't wait until we get together again in person, and hopefully it'll be sometime this fall. There are a couple items that I want to discuss this evening or share with you, and certainly safety is paramount to the organization and is one of our top priorities. Last month was Highway Safety Month here in Virginia. It was designated as Highway Safety Month by Governor Northam to be able to advance and create an awareness for safety overall within the Commonwealth. Last month, we did partner with our sister agencies to heighten that awareness. That included partnering with the Virginia State Police, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the Department of Health, and the Department of Education. Part of that Highway Safety Month is a tradition within VDOT to celebrate also observe the National Work Zone Awareness Week. This year, our theme was Drive Safe, Work Safe, and Save Lives. And you may have seen that on a number of variable message signs throughout the Hampton Roads District. That theme was chosen to really emphasize the part that everyone plays to keep our workers and our motorists safe in our highway work zones. So each one of them play a vital role. We do have a number of work activities that are underway and are going to continue to expand. Certainly segment 3 along I-64. We have I-264, 64 interchange that will be finishing up this year, the high-rise bridge, and I think the signature project of the Hampton Roads District is going to be the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. We do have a lot of open ground in the city of Norfolk, a lot of orange cones and barrels out there, so I do want to remind everyone to be alert and expect the unexpected in our work zones. Switching gears a little bit, I'd like to mention the agency's response to the COVID-19 global pandemic. This past year has been certainly a challenge for all of us, and that the pandemic has required unprecedented flexibility and adaptability. And I'm happy to say that the department staff's response has been impeccable. Our primary focus on the onset of the global pandemic was protecting our employees. We needed to ensure their safety was first. We also had to adjust immediately to that new operating environment everyone talks about. This includes from our field forces to understanding and embracing social distancing, to our office workers now learning how to telework. But even with that global pandemic, VDOT has continued to deliver those services unencumbered. The department has continued to hold virtual public hearings, such as this one, to ensure that we engage our public and our stakeholders in our projects. As the Secretary has indicated, we've continued to advertise our projects and award those projects, hire our consultants and contractors to deliver our goods and services. In short, we've been able to keep our projects moving on time and on budget without delay. So let me speak to you a little bit about why we're here this evening, and that being the 6-year improvement program. The fiscal year 22 through 27 6-year plan that's dedicated to the highway construction program is valued at $15.7 billion. This includes 3,900 projects in the total program over the 6 years, and it includes a little more than $4 billion in funding that's provided by others. And those others include the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, your own Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, and our P3 public-private partners that are out there. Now, this program, as the Secretary has indicated, implements or fully implements the new transportation funding formula that has been approved by the Governor and the General Assembly this past year. This program that we're here for also updates a number of funding programs that were not updated last year in light of the pandemic. And those programs include the State of Good Repair for paving, the State of Good Repair for bridges, unpaved roads, our Innovation and Technology Transportation Fund, and Smart Scale. We've been working with our regional partners as well and have been able to update the regional surface transportation program as well as our congestion mitigation and air quality programs. Now, I'm happy to report that there are two new program areas in this 6-year program that are a result of the last year's legislation, and that includes the Interstate Operations and Enhancement Program and the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Now, the proposed projects in each of these funding programs can be viewed on the spring meeting website, and I encourage you to visit the website, and the URL is at the bottom of the screen. We look forward to receiving your comments this evening, as well as for those that do not want to comment this evening, we will offer an opportunity through written and electronic means. With that being said, Madam Secretary, that concludes my comments, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brich. Director Mitchell.
Thank you very much. Like the Commissioner and the Secretary, I too wish that we could be there in person tonight, but hopefully we will be able to gather in person again soon. Just a few highlights about DRPT's 6-year plan. In fiscal year 22, we will be allocating over $1 billion in federal and state funds to rail and public transportation. That includes $756 million in public transportation funding and $266 million for rail funding. As Secretary Valentine described earlier, we did have an announcement today related to our Transforming Rail in Virginia initiative, and that is a partnership with Norfolk Southern to extend a second train to Roanoke and extend service from Roanoke to the New River Valley, hopefully by 2025. And we're very excited to be able to announce that today here in Christiansburg. In addition to that, we have our partnership with DRPT, CSX, Amtrak, and VRE on improvements in the 95 corridor. And that includes doubling state-supported service across the state, acquiring property and in-rail corridors that parallel 95, 65, 64, and 85. This will also result in new service for the Hampton Roads District, including one round trip to Newport News and another round trip to Norfolk as well. As part of this, we'll be constructing a new 2-track bridge between DC and Virginia called the Long Bridge, one of the biggest rail bottlenecks on the East Coast that all of our service across the state, including the service that originates in Hampton Roads, all traverses. Overall, on our transit side, we received one of the largest number of requests we've received for capital funding in many years. We had requests for $216 million in funding for 592 projects. Of that, we're going to be funding 374 state of good repair projects, as well as a number of minor enhancement projects. And that's consistent with the CTB's policy to fund state of good repair projects before major enhancement projects, depending on funding constraints. In addition to that, we're providing funding, 7.8 million in funding from our Volkswagen Trust Mitigation Fund for new electric vehicles. And that's 19 electric vehicles that we'll be funding for 3 agencies: Valley Metro in Roanoke, Blacksburg Transit, and the Fairfax Connector in Northern Virginia. On the operating funding, we are providing a 2% increase in our statewide annual operating assistance, which means that all of the transit agencies across the state will receive a slight increase over and above their levels for last year, which is extremely important in this year. With COVID, the challenges that many of our transit agencies faced were significant in providing essential services while also maintaining safety and dealing with major revenue losses as well. So we're glad we can provide an increase in operating funding. Here in Hampton Roads, we'll be providing 140 million in state, local, and federal transit funding. That includes funding for Greensville Emporia Transit, operating funding for Hampton Roads Transit, as well as a number of new and rehabilitated new buses and also rehabilitated rail cars. For Star Transit, we're also providing operating and capital funding, Suffolk Transit, the town of Chincoteague, as well as the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority. We're providing commuter assistance grants to HRT's Traffic Van Pool Assistance Program in paratransit vehicles through our Human Service Transportation Program for the Hampton Newport News Community Services Board, the Louise W. Eggleston Center, Peninsula Agency on Aging, Senior Services of Southeastern Virginia, and Versability Resources. From our rail preservation program here in the Hampton Roads District, we will be providing funding for the Norfolk and Portsmouth Beltline, for the Chesapeake, Norfolk, Portsmouth area, programmatic rail ties and other infrastructure upgrades. And that's 900 million from our rail preservation program as well. We have a number of statewide rail planning activities underway, including our statewide rail plan, which is updated every 4 years, a study of the new Commonwealth corridor, a potential corridor extending from Hampton Roads to Richmond to points west in Charlottesville and other points west as well. In addition to that, we'll be doing statewide station improvement planning and wrapping up some statewide plans for stations in Bedford, Charlottesville, and also beginning a study of potential rail service to Bristol to support a request that we received from the General Assembly in this last session. With that, I'm very happy again to be here in Hampton Roads. Look forward to hearing your comments, and I'll turn it back to you, Secretary Valentine.
Thank you, Director Mitchell. Now we're going to hear from John Malbon, the CTB representative from Hampton Roads.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I would like to open up just to talk a little bit about Smart Scale, because that has been transformative to this 6-year process. I've been on the CTB board long enough to remember before we instituted the Smart Scale process. And what we would do in this 6-year cycle, we had a book probably 8 to 10 inches thick that had all the state's projects, and we would go through an extremely cumbersome process where we would partially fund these projects. We may put engineering money on it, we put right-of-way money on it, may put utility money on it, and finally put construction money on it. Well, that process was inherently flawed and totally inefficient, because some projects were delayed for extended period of times for whatever reason. Politics came into play occasionally. But now that we're in the Smart Scale, when we make these commitments, we make these commitments fully funded. For example, the first 3 rounds of Smart Scale in the Hampton Roads District, it's 78 projects, $875 million, averaging about $291 million around. And those projects are fully funded, and they're currently in various stages of construction development, whether it's engineering or utility acquisitions, or actually under construction, like you see with a lot of projects going on in the Hampton roads. In the fourth round of this cycle, we got 19 projects out of 53 applications, which and they're scored based on our formula, which is, I think, again, very equitable and the right way to move about it. And that's $126 million worth of projects in this cycle. And some of the highlighted ones are the Denby I-64 interchange project in Newport News, the Suffolk Seaboard Coastline Trail in Suffolk, and the Northampton Boulevard and Diamond Springs Road intersection improvement in Virginia Beach. Those are just a few, but many more just as significant as those. So my point is, we're on the right track. You're seeing these projects as you ride around the region, and part of that result is that we're much more efficient, we're much more equitable about how we fund these projects, and we're meeting the needs of the Commonwealth very efficiently. So that's it for me, Madam Secretary. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Malbon. I will just say that I don't even want to talk about when your term may end, but certainly the time that you have spent on this board has truly been transformative. And you and I both being on the board together, working through Smart Scale, all the meetings trying to go through all the factors and scenarios and scoring. But I couldn't agree with you more. Bringing that kind of transparency and accountability to fully funded projects has really positioned Virginia in a completely different way. So anyway, I recognize your contribution and Mr. Johnson and Mr. Miller's in getting us to this point. So thank you.
Madam Secretary, you remember that 10-inch binder, don't you?
I came in 2014, and so for the first few rounds, I did have the big binder, but truthfully, we began working on Smart Scale almost immediately. I would dream about Deputy Secretary Donahue and those long presentations. So it transformed fairly quickly for me, and it's the system now to be able to work through it. It can always get better. I recognize that. We can always do it better, but we can explain and justify the decisions we're making.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We're in a good place right now. Thank you.
We're in a good place. So anyway, with that, Chris Hall, our district engineer.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And as you know, here in Hampton Roads, we operate one of the more diverse transportation systems in the state, being home to 5 major military installations, one of the nation's largest ports, but also home of Virginia Spaceport out on the Eastern Shore. But for me, our greatest strength here in Hampton Roads is our great partnerships. And it's because of these partnerships that we really are enjoying some exciting times with regard to transportation infrastructure investment. And just sort of a big picture, looking back over the last 6 years, we've been able to deliver over $1.7 billion in transportation construction projects, an additional $560 million in completed maintenance and operations projects. But that's just part of the story. Looking ahead is the real story. And over the next 6 years, a lot going on here in Hampton Roads. We're on path to deliver over $6 billion worth of new construction. And the Commissioner mentioned some of those things in his comments. Those include the completion of our 64 widening projects, those suite of projects that take us up through Williamsburg, completion of our 64-264 interchange modifications, completion of the high-rise bridge expansion project, the beginning and completion by 2025 of our Hampton Roads Express Lane network, which is going to be so important to unlocking the region and providing safe and reliable options here in Hampton Roads. And then, of course, the state's largest project in history, the expansion of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. As I said, these regional priority projects could not be possible without the fantastic partnership of our federal regional planning partners in the Hampton Roads Transportation Planning organization, and also our regional transportation financing authority, the Hampton Roads Transportation Accountability Commission, HRTAC. So, you know, key partners in making all of that happen. Lastly, I would like to highlight the important contribution of all of our local partners. We have 12 different localities here delivering a quarter of the state's locally administered program, local assistance program. That counts for roughly about 340 projects and about $1.2 billion in construction value. In the district here, just as a, you know, a fact, you know, by the number of projects, this accounts for about 2/3 of our program. So here in Hampton Roads, the majority of our program by project is being delivered by our localities. And, you know, bottom line is, without the strong partnership and contribution of our localities here, we would not be able to do what we do. So I want to recognize them, their commitment, and their strong partnership as we move forward, and how important they are in our success. Again, a lot of work on the horizon, and we look forward to serving the region as part of that partnership here in Hampton Roads. And that completes my comments. Back to you, Madam Secretary.
And I had the great pleasure of being able to be in a socially distanced room with Chris Hall recently. And as I said then, and I'll say tonight, what an outstanding job you do for the Commonwealth and the region, having you over there. So Chris, thank you for all you do. I recently spoke at a conference about P3s and partnerships, but really the way you highlight the partnership with, you know, HRTAC and HRTPO, the partnerships we have in the Commonwealth are really the foundation for how we manage transportation. So I really appreciate that. With that, Kim Pryor, do you want to let people know how they can communicate with us and let us know their thoughts and recommendations for the 6-year improvement program?
Sure, thank you. There are multiple ways to give us your feedback on the 6-year improvement program. Comments can be submitted online. We're also accepting comments via email at the addresses shown on the screen. And then finally, you can also submit comments by mail. Tonight, we will also be accepting comments by call-in. And if you go to the next slide, if you call the number shown on the screen and dial the PIN, you'll be placed in a queue and called upon in order. And we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. And with that, I will turn it over to Justin to begin the public comment portion.
Thank you. We'll begin the public comment with Judy Swiston. Well, thank you to keep your comments limited to 3 minutes. And if you'd like to address the meeting, you have the floor to speak now.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to make a public comment. I'm a co-owner of transportation companies in Norfolk, Newport News, and Virginia Beach who have made applications this year for the 5310 funding. I'm calling in to object to not being included in our request for the federal Section 5310 funding to maintain our on-demand wheelchair taxi service for the elderly and disabled in Hampton Roads. Our community has had wheelchair accessibility service since 2010, when we began receiving federal funding to purchase and operate these vehicles. The purpose of the federal funding program is to assist in meeting the transportation needs of older adults, people with disabilities, when the transportation services provided is unavailable, insufficient, or inappropriate to meeting these needs. Our wheelchair vehicles fulfill this purpose by providing on-demand, no advance reservation required. We are there during business, after hours, after business hours, before business hours, on weekends, holidays. We also fulfill the purpose of medical trips, grocery store trips, airport trips, train trips, visiting family and friends locally on demand. The wheelchair vehicles also reduce the state and local costs as our service as we partner with Medicaid transportation brokers, handy ride paratransit services, community service boards, and many, many other accounts. DRPT has denied our recent funding request based on inaccurate information. At first they told us that the taxi cab companies, they don't provide shared ride services and are not eligible for federal funding. In 2012, we obtained an opinion from the FTA's attorney that our cab companies are eligible for this federal funding so long as it is done through a contract with HRT or DRPT. We have always obtained the taxi cab funding under a contract with HRT or DRPT. We provided a copy of that legal opinion to DRPT. In addition, taxi cab companies throughout the country receive these federal grants for wheelchair vehicles. DRPT has also expressed the concern that while the number of wheelchair trips is tracked, about how it's tracked, the number of trips for elderly and the disabled. We provided DRPT with the trip data and demographic data to establish that the number of trips exceeds 50%. Although we can readily track wheelchair users, asking passengers how old they are, or if they don't have an obvious disability, would be impractical and lead to legal problems. None of the proposed HRT Hampton Roads recipients provides transportation except during business hours or for special purposes. For example, the Peninsula Agency on Aging provides transportation only for medical purposes, requires advance reservation, only operates 8:30 to 5 regularly, Monday through Friday, doesn't do weekends, holidays, or after hours. Without the wheelchair vehicles, on-demand transportation service available to the elderly and disabled in Hampton Roads will become unavailable. Our funding request should be included to fulfill the purpose of the federal 5310 funding. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time also.
Thank you. Judy, I caught your first name. Do you mind just saying what your last name is?
Swiston. It's hard to spell. It's SWYSTUN.
STUN. Swinston. No, thank you very much. I know that DRPT is very well aware of these issues, and so I'll follow up with them just given your remarks tonight.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I can confirm that is the conclusion of the public caller portion.
That's it. Well, it's only because of all the great work done by all of you. I do see 29 people have joined the meeting, and trust me, I'm so grateful that you all are here. If that is it, I will simply say thank you to you all. I'm going to ask Kim Pryor if you'll just put that last slide up. We have been making a commitment across transportation to a number of environmental issues having to do with reducing greenhouse gases, looking at resiliency issues, and the real impact of transportation on climate change, as well as the climate change impact on transportation. As a part of this, we have also initiated a litter program. Virginia's for Lovers, Not Litter, and we're asking all citizens to help us in this effort. It's not just to keep our roadways and byways and greenways beautiful, but to keep them safe, to keep them always vehicles in corridors for economic development and opportunity. So it'll take 10 seconds or less for you to sign the pledge and join us and just helping to keep Virginia beautiful. So I thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Malbon, Mr. Miller, Mr. Johnson for joining us. And what a great team. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Well done, team.
Well done.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.